The Drug Enforcement Agency will move to reclassify marijuana and make it less, no, not make it less dangerous, but reclassify it as a less dangerous drug. This is an historic move. It hasn't happened exactly yet, but yesterday we heard that it's going to happen. And what that means is that it will loosen restrictions on marijuana. Not quite legalize it federally, but also it will schedule it as a Schedule 3 substance. So what does that mean? And what does that mean for legalized weed? What does that mean for those who are growing, those who are selling, those who are buying? We have a lot of questions. Joining us now is Eric Redlinger. He is the founder of Minneleaf, which we've talked to Eric on the show before. He is the founder and creator of Minneleaf Minnesota, which is offers consumer products with THC and CBD in them. Eric, we want to thank you so much for joining us on the John Schuster Coldwell Banker Hotline.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's nice to talk to you about these very interesting times that we're having and very, I would say, kind of unprecedented times, something new that we haven't had happen.
So what does this mean, Eric? It's going from a Schedule 1 drug, and by the way, other Schedule 1 drugs are like heroin and methamphetamines, and the DEA is going to move it to a Schedule 3 substance. Schedule 3 substances are ketamine and steroids, among others. So what does this mean for those selling it and for those purchasing it?
Well, it's going to decriminalize it from the highest level that they have down to like the third level that they have. You know, I think that still is way too high for what it needs to be. You know, marijuana is non-toxic. People can't overdose on it. And it's one of these substances that have kind of been really maligned over the years, and it was put in that category specifically not for what the drug actually did, but for more of social reasons and whatnot, because it was kind of more used along the lines of something to keep the prisons full.
Eric, when we talk about, in states like Minnesota that have legalized it for recreational use and are, like Minnesota in its infancy doing that and trying to develop a system to do that, what are the biggest challenges that you face in dealing with a federal law that still says it's illegal, but a state that says, no, it's legal?
That's a very good question. A lot of times it comes down to where you can advertise your products, how you can advertise your products, and what you can say about your products. So a lot of people will see, okay, this is Delta 9 instead of saying THC. Well, Delta 9 is THC. That's the chemical name for it. So it's kind of like saying, okay, water is H2O. Saying, okay, saying water is illegal, but you can say H2O is saying legal. Same thing with saying Delta 9 is legal, but you can't say THC. And no one knows what Delta 9 is. There's so much confusion in the marketplace about it. So it gets people really confused on exactly what they're buying. So I think with this drop from a Schedule 3 to into the Schedule 3 would be a much better way of being able just to let the consumer know exactly what they're getting and exactly what it is.
Also, I'm reading that it could open the door to more research and studies. And I know that part of your job is really to educate Minnesotans and all of your customers about possible beneficial uses of marijuana. So have you heard about any more of these studies?
There's a lot of studies that are going on. There's about 100 different cannabinoids in cannabis, and about 66 of them have been identified as having use for humans. It has an interaction with our body. And there's a couple of great big ones, like one of the minor cannabinoids is called CBN. I call it CB Night-Night because that's the one that regulates your sleep. And so you're seeing a lot of pushback from Big Pharma because they want to keep their sleep drugs that they have instead of having something that's easy and plant-based that they can use, and it's also very effective.
So is that, Eric, is that a huge part of this when we talk about the hesitancy to change the federal law? Is that the pharmaceutical companies just have such control that they're like, wait a minute, no, our products are used for this, and we don't want marijuana to be used for what we're using it for?
That's pretty much the whole reason why we're stuck where we're at.
This is a huge shift then in policy if it goes from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3. Is that right?
That's correct. You're going to see a lot of companies, specifically on the big pharma end of it, that are really going to be pushing hard against that because they want to keep their stranglehold on the market.
Eric, we are talking, by the way, on the John Schuster Coldwell Banker Hotline to Eric Redlinger, founder of Minneleaf. State-wise, I've heard that we're still having this kind of clunky rollout of the legalization of recreational marijuana. It's supposed to be flower, is supposed to be available come next year, but folks need to grow it to sell it. And I know that at the legislature they're saying, we need to actually speed this up to get this done. How closely are you monitoring that, and what's your position on what's happening there at the state legislature?
I keep tabs on it every single day, but, Minnesota, we're an agrarian culture. That's what we started out with, We're a farming and an iron range state, essentially. And we know that it takes that long to grow the crops and produce them. If we're going to grow them outside, obviously you got to have seeds in the ground pretty soon, or otherwise you're not going to have anything come October, no matter what you're planting. And so if we're going to be all doing indoor grow states, well, it takes time to build that out. Are you going to spend millions of dollars on doing an indoor grow if you don't know if you actually can grow? So it's going to take time to build that out and then grow the plants and harvest the plants. And then you have to cure the buds, and then you have to package them, and you have to get them tested. And so there's a lot more than just clipping it off the plants, putting them in a bag and selling it. So, a typical harvest will take, 8 months to a year to get done.
Eric, I just want to also ask you about this declassification. I'm reading that reclassification of the drug would give marijuana businesses some tax breaks, some better access to banking services. Are you having issues with your company, with, federal tax laws and, how to pay taxes?
Things have gotten a lot better over the past probably 3 or 4 years. 4 years ago, you couldn't walk in and pay with a credit card. Now, pretty much every place, you can pay with a credit card. And so we've seen a lot of relaxation with that. Once it gets more used to being in the environment and more people get used to having it, they realize, okay, this isn't like buying heroin on your Amex. This is buying, a sleep gummy so you can fall asleep at night.
The bank problem, though, was one, though, that was really interesting in that some company, like if you're a marijuana business and you've got money that you want to put in a bank, that those banks are federally insured and therefore you can't do that. Is that right, or have they changed the laws there so you can do that now?
No, that's right. And so a lot of these people that are banking are kind of banking on the whim that the federal government could come in and say, all right, that was made and seize it. And also what they can do is, because they can use some of the RICO laws on it, and they can say, okay, let's say you're renting from a landlord, and that landlord knows that they're renting to a marijuana business, and the landlord has been taking that money from the marijuana business and paying his taxes and, the rent on the building. They can say, all right, we're going to seize that because that's also part of the marijuana operation. So you see a lot of business or building owners that are looking to put these businesses in it. They're like, I'm just not risking your business. I'm risking my building as well. And so you see a lot of pushback on that too. And so you got to find the right landlord who wants to be part of the movement before you really can, make that store happen.
So would this reclassification change any of that? Would it make it easier for the renters and the landlords?
It might be a little bit easier to make it happen, but with, ketamine, you still need a prescription for that. For most steroids, you still need some prescriptions for that. But the great part is it's going to open up a lot of this research that you're able to do. Like if you're researching marijuana right now, some of the people that I work with on research, they're like, okay, I can't walk down the street and buy marijuana from a store and come back to my lab and test it. I need to use government-grown marijuana and then do my experiments with that. And so that's one of the biggest shifts I think that we're going to be able to see, is that they're just going to have more products to open up and test and have a lot more research done on exactly what this plant can do and can help with us. We're seeing a lot of great research right now on a minor cannabinoid called CBG. That's probably one. I know there's a very famous video of someone who smokes weed and they have Parkinson's, and it pretty much stops all their shaking. And that's one of the drugs that, I think a lot of more research could be done on, because there's a lot of promise in how those systems work with the body and how that CBG connects.